Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and radio here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and we are spending an hour today with my friends at the Chester Theater Company. We have their artistic director, Daniel Elihu Kramer. We have their marketing and development person, Angela Combest. My favorite cookie maker, Tara Franklin, James Barry, and Paul Pontrelli. And these are the talents that are going to be spending the summer bringing you theater at Hancock Shaker Village this year. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked with Jennifer Trainer Thompson from Hancock Shaker Village, and she was all excited about the fact that you all are going to be out there this summer. And after she described all of the things that you could do while you're there, I can't wait to go out and see you all do your season out there. So good morning, you guys.
Good morning.
So, gosh, I've had James and Tara are always on my program, and I had them. It was one of the they were interviewed one of the last shows before the arrival of the pandemic. We've talked online quite a bit. We talked about Corona covers. They did 2 songs for me, which I loved. Tara came on and talked about Sweet Sam Bakes. Daniel, you were on earlier. And Paul, we've never met before, but I remember your performance in I and You, which was, I think, your debut at Chester Theater down the road. And Angela's always here on the show. So first of all, we should probably talk about the upcoming season, because you guys are going to be producing 3 shows at Hancock Shaker Village, live and in person after the pandemic. So Daniel, you want to describe the season?
Sure, I would love to. Mark, I'm going to hijack your show for 1 minute because Paul, hi. I say one of the things you're doing, Mark, wonderfully for us is staging a little mini pre-reunion before we all get together this summer. And I'm just pleased beyond to see Paul here as well as everybody else. So pardon me for that interruption. And now I promise to answer your question. But thank you for bringing us together. So yeah, we're doing a 3-show season. As you know, normally we do 4 shows. And as we worked out details with Hancock, and as we looked at what made sense for everybody, 3 shows made sense this summer. 2 of them are actually ones we had initially hoped to do as part of our 2020 season that still felt just right to us. We're opening with a show that was not in our 2020 season, and that is an absolutely marvelous Will Eno play called Title and Deed. And it's a one-man show starring James Barry, who you see right here, or you're listening to, depending on which way you're following along. And it's an absolutely fabulous show about a traveler who has come somewhere new, and the new place that he's come is wherever the rest of us, the audience, are seeing him. And he's trying to connect to us. And that really launches for us, I think, what becomes the theme of our summer, which is about the need and the desire to make connection, which feels more vital than ever after this long period, or perhaps, we hope late in this long period where we've been kept apart from each other so much, and where connection has been what we've most missed and sought. And it's funny, and it's deep and philosophical. And the moment that I started reading it, I started picturing James. And James, you can decide if that's good or bad. And we have the wonderful Kira Naughton coming back to direct it. And in fact, Paul worked with her the last summer we had Theater 2019 on their beautiful production of Curve of Departure by Rachel Bonds. And this is only your first chance to see James on our stage this summer. So, hold that thought. So yeah, James will be out there in just that beautiful, funny play, Title and Deed. Then in the middle of the summer, that's our June show. In July, we'll be doing a play that was in our plans for 2020. And that's The Niceties by Eleanor Burgess. And the 2 central characters are a young Black female college student, Zoe, who has written a paper for her 60-something white female college professor, Janine, claiming that slavery is part of the basis of the American Revolution. And the misunderstandings between them, their attempts to find common ground, and the difficulty they have doing it, really form the energy of that show. It turns into an enormous event on campus, a really powerful play that felt important in 2020 and feels no less important here in 2021. A wonderful younger director, Christina Franklin, is coming up from New York to direct that play. Excited that we'll be able to share this, I think, powerful story about some of the issues that we're dealing with even this weekend as we wait for closing arguments Monday in the Derek Chauvin trial. And I think it's going to be really something to see this show. We're finishing with the play that was going to finish our 2020 season. And that is Tiny Beautiful Things by Nia Vardalos, but based on the book and originally the advice columns, the Dear Sugar advice columns by the author Cheryl Strayed. And it is a marvelous, absolutely beautiful, beautiful play. It can be funny, it can be heartbreaking, it can be everything. And three of the folks here with us are going to be in that. So Tara is going to be playing Sugar, the advice columnist. And James will be in it. Wonderful actress, Candace Barrett Burke, whose husband, Ray, was actually in Curve of Departure with Paul. And Paul, who is going to be the one there who knows what's going on, because Paul actually played this role before at Long Wharf Theater. Paul, what year was that? 2019?
2019 sounds right.
Okay, so. Let's say that's when it was. And it's a gorgeous play, and it becomes about the ways in which these people who never really meet each other, because it's all these different people writing into Dear Sugar at these vulnerable moments in their own lives, find connection and sustenance from her in the way that she discovers that she's finding the same from them. And it's a beautiful play about that connection and about how sustaining that connection can be when we find it sometimes in the hardest moments of our own lives. So I promise to let you go now. There you go. That's the season.
Well, that sounds great. So as we're chatting for the hour here, if people want to find out more about what's going on at Chester, Angela, tell them how they can find out or get subscriptions and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, the easiest thing to do is go to the website, which is www.chestertheater.org. And theater is R-E at the end. So that's one thing to remember. And you just click the buy tickets link. It'll take you right to the site that has a calendar. And it's pretty easy. Our box office hours right now, we're taking calls on the phone on Mondays and Wednesdays from 12 to 3. And in about mid-May, that'll expand when we get our interns in and start gearing up for the whole shebang.
Well, I can't wait. It's going to be different for you guys, though, because the tent or whatever your performance space at Hancock Shaker Village is going to be larger than the performance space that you guys have in Chester. Is that going to be a challenge?
Well, we're doing a couple of things. It is a tent. It's an absolutely beautiful tent just next to the visitor center at Hancock Shaker Village. It is larger, though. Actually, we need that space in part because for safety purposes, different parties will be seated apart from each other. So we need all of that room for folks out there. And there are a bunch of things we're doing. We're going to be doing fully supported sound this time because, you can get pretty far from people and it can be hard to hear folks in a tent sometimes. So actors will all be mic'd and there will be a sound system through the tent for people. We're going to have a raised stage rather than a raised audience this time. But the challenges are many, but I think that all of us, especially if I think about myself and Angela and Tara, who are staff year-round at the theater, the excitement of actually being able to plan a season again is seeing us through a lot of the work of it.
I don't know about you guys, but I am just past the 2 weeks after my second shot. And all of a sudden the world of freedom comes. And the thing that I want to do more than anything else, besides sit at Starbucks with some friends, is to go to live theater. I have missed live theater in a big way. So I would imagine for all of you, having lived through this pandemic and done some things on Zoom, Tara was in a Wham production of Row on Zoom, and James and Tara were in a Shakespeare production of yours, Daniel. You must be so excited to go back to live theater.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah,
Yeah.
Paul, go on. I was actually going to say when I called, I was going to talk about when you and I talked on the phone.
Yeah, I think doing, a lot of theater is still happening over Zoom or virtually, but it's really not the same as talking to actors in person. I would say as far as work goes, because you're looking at squares, you're looking at yourself sometimes, which isn't my what I like to do. So I miss, I don't know, being in the room with people and also the audience. You can't hear how people respond. You can't feel breath changing on Zoom. So I, like you, Mark, I'm really excited to get back together.
I know how Angela got to Chester Theater and how James and Tara did. But Paul, what got you to Chester in the first place? And you keep coming back year after year, so you're sort of the part of the Chester family. What excited you enough about Chester to want to come back?
Well, I mean, Chester is a really special place in my heart. I'd say like it's a home away from home for me. And I think the Berkshires is really special too, to have a theater community so close by and outside of New York with a totally different energy, totally different vibe. I was in grad school actually when I auditioned for INU, and I was looking for a job for the summer. And on my lunch break, I ran up to Actors Equity to go to an EPA and walked in and gave Daniel a really quick audition. And it was just kind of one of those auditions that fell into place, I felt like. And then even when I met with Daniel for the callback, it was the same deal. I had like 20 minutes on my lunch break, ran in, did the scene, headed back, and that summer was amazing. Working on INU was amazing, and with working with Lily Hokama, who comes up to Chester often, was really, really amazing. I don't know. Meet a lot of special people every summer, and it's rare to get space to work on plays um, where you just kind of time to breathe. And Chester is beautiful. The Berkshires are beautiful, and there's, I don't know, something in the air there. So I'm always happy to be back.
What's going to happen to the little town of Chester while you guys are all at Hancock Shaker Village?
Yeah, we're doing our best to be as present in that town as we can. We're certainly still going to be holding our rehearsals there. Our offices are there. When actors come from out of town, as Paul will, to do the show, they'll be living in Chester. I suspect we'll be down at Chester Common Table as often as we're able to, and enjoying, the beauty of that place. But we're also, and Angela and I have been looking at this a little bit. I think we will more, but we're going to maintain the $10 tickets for Chester residents because we're still their theater company. And we're going to try and figure out any ways to help folks from Chester get out to the theater and see stuff.
Yeah, it's what about an extra 40 minutes each way in terms of your commute to get to and from?
That's probably right.
Will you be able to store sets under the tent and put up lighting and not be dependent upon the weather, or do you have to take everything down after each performance?
Not every performance, but there are some Saturdays where there are weddings and they need us to disappear so that wonderful people in love can come together. We certainly don't want to interfere with that, but it will make for some busy Friday nights and Sunday mornings for us.
So I didn't realize that they actually held weddings there. So next question, James Barry. When we last talked, you were you were doing a lot of these Corona cover music things, and you were going to take a little alternate path and do some playwriting. How has that worked out?
It's worked out amazingly well, I would say. I couldn't have foreseen how perfect and what an extraordinary balm it's been for me during the pandemic to be able to throw myself into pursuing my master's degree, and continuing with the spirit of family that we were talking about, with all of these wonderful people you see here returning to work with each other again and again. So I'm pursuing my MFA in playwriting at Smith College, where Tara teaches, where Daniel is a professor, and so that sense of family just increases. So it's been really meaningful for me to expand my my horizons in theater, my awareness of different styles of theater making, different playwrights that I was unaware of or had not explored deeply, and just to take this deep dive with Daniel, with Len Berkman, with all these wonderful professors at Smith. It's been a wonderful use of my time.
And you've been able to write during the pandemic. A lot of people haven't been able to act or perform, but writing is something you can do anywhere. So, have you found the pandemic has given you more time to sit and write, or are you drawn and quartered in a million directions anyway?
Well, yeah, that's interesting to consider. My course load is formidable. It is grad school and it's a 2-year program, so things are pretty intense and concentrated. So I have a lot of work to do, but it's all stuff that I really enjoy, which in many ways is such a blessing and a luxury, and I'm so grateful. So, yeah, I mean, I've been writing one short play a week for almost 2 semesters now, so it's been a great exercise.
Are you getting to the point now where you're ready to see them produced, or are you writing them really for the class?
Yeah, I've got a couple of ideas, but I don't think anything's ready for. I did get to direct one fuller length, 1-act that I had written in the fall semester, and I worked with a few really extraordinary Smith actors, and so to bring that to life via Zoom was really special for me, and that it was a marvelous experience. But it also really highlighted all the things Paul was just talking about how we can't wait to get back to doing it live, because when that whole experience was over, I mean, we couldn't even get a pizza, or it was just like, and I guess I'll click leave meeting now after I'd had this huge, meaningful experience with these extraordinary young actors and all the departmental support and people helping me to bring this to life on Zoom. And it just ended, and I was just sitting in the office in front of my laptop.
Yeah, Tara, you did the play Row for Wham Theater during the pandemic. What was it like for you? You're used to performing in front of an audience. You're in a large ensemble play being done by Zoom. That must have stretched boundaries for you as an actor. We need your volume, Tara.
Oh, it could be your headphones.
I can't hear Tara at all. So, while we get that, probably we'll ask Paul. How did you spend the pandemic?
Oh, questioning everything, I would say. I was doing a play last year, right before before lockdown. So we were about to go into tech, and then all of a sudden, the reality of the pandemic is, I think, especially for theater actors, is where's the work and how am I getting insurance, and things that hit home like that. And it's unprecedented for everybody. So I'd say a lot of the pandemic was wondering about those things, and I don't know. I think also kind of like we're saying with theater, I think realizing what life is when you can't be with other people, so being far away from family. I mean, I don't have too many fun stories about the pandemic, but I think a lot of it was kind of trying to get back in touch with what matters.
Okay, we're going to take a fast break here to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat programming possible here on both Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. We're talking with the good people from the Chester Theater Company. I'm going to ask them to wave when I say their name, so if you're watching this on YouTube and Zoom, you're going to know who the voices are and connect them with the faces. Daniel Elihu Kramer, who's the artistic director. Angela Combest, who is the marketing and development director. Tara Franklin, actor and teacher and associate artistic director. James Barry, who is studying playwriting, but he's a music director and actor. And Paul Pontrelli. Peter Coles is our chief engineer this morning. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll return after these announcements.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield. Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield. Underwriting for Community Radio on WSKB is brought to you in part by Rockies. Over 30 convenient locations throughout Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Florida. One of the nation's largest ACE dealers. Expertise and great product selection in paint, hardware, lawn and garden. That's Rockies. Rock solid service since 1926. On the web at rockies.com.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. You're either watching us on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 or listening to us on 89.5 FM WSKB. We're spending the hour today with the good people from Chester Theater Company, their artistic director, Daniel Elihu Kramer, their development and marketing person, Angela Combest, who has a feline friend who keeps popping on and off camera, and I guess perhaps in hopes of that Chester will produce Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or Cats in an upcoming season. Tara Franklin, who is the Associate Artistic Director, actor, teacher, James Barry, playwright, music director, and actor, and Paul Pontrelli, actor. Tara, we tried to ask you before what the experience of doing a large cast show like Row was, and the sound kind of bopped out. Can you hear us now?
Yes. Can you hear me?
You're perfect. So what was it like? What was it like doing through Zoom a large cast show where you guys never got to rehearse together in the same place?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I remember most about is just being really lonely. And I was in my basement, filming this because we had green screens. I mean, the design of the production was pretty amazing. And they shipped us all these costume pieces and prop pieces and the green screens, but I had to kind of have it up every day. So I needed a space in my house to be able to do that. I think I was fascinated with how they were putting it together. And I wasn't as focused on probably what I should have been, which was like the acting. I was just kind of in awe of how they were able to navigate Zoom and use a lot of different things that I hadn't even, I didn't even know they were capable of. But it was a really great story to be able to tell. Especially it was quite timely when it ended up airing. What was really wonderful about it for me was that I got to meet a lot of actors that I had not been able to meet before, and all these kind of local group of talent, which was so great. So I thank Wham and Kristen Vangenhoven for allowing me to be part of such a special group.
One of the things that people say when we talk with various theater companies, they think that the folks at Berkshire Theater Group think that they are a family. The people at Shakespeare and Company think of themselves as a family. The Barrington Stage Associate Artists think of themselves as a family. You guys think of yourselves as a family. Is this unique to all theaters, or is this unique to theaters here?
Speak to that just because I'm actually, I think this past year has really made me think about being able to share in each other's companies in a way that maybe we hadn't before. I mean, I've had the privilege of working with the Berkshire Theater Group, with Chester Theater Company, and now with Wham. And I think it's really important that we that we think of ourselves as a community, as opposed to these separate theaters. There's so many people in the Berkshires and in the Pioneer Valley that that want to work, that are talented and have so much to give to the theater community. And I would just hope that as we, especially after the pandemic, where I think we're all just so eager to work, that we can get better at supporting each other and encouraging each other and sharing talent and productions. And I don't know, I just think I think that's where our next step is, or I hope it is.
I hope so too. I mean, I know a lot of people that work in New York and LA end up moving to the Berkshires or Western Massachusetts because they like the quality of life here, and but they doing most of their work in New York or LA, and they zoom up here for the weekends. You, Tara and James and Daniel and Angela live here year round and are able to eke out a living doing what you love in a place surrounded by creative people. I wonder if that exists elsewhere, if we're just super lucky.
There are a few places I think that folks can do that, but there aren't many. And I think that is special about it. You say eke out, certainly many of us combine, a little of this, a little of that. But I think many of us in theater and more broadly in the arts know that there's often a little of this, a little of that. Going back to what you were saying about family, I think each of us probably can give you one story, or won't give you one story, but have a story about somewhere we worked that did not feel like family, or at least felt like a family we would very much like not to be a part of. But I do think one of the things that is maybe distinctive about that feeling at Chester is how much, and this is why it's going to be so great to be all back together, how much that feeling includes the audience, right? That I think that sense of family is also a sense of connection between the artists and the staff and the audience. I think also, if you talk to our interns, they will feel that they were an integral part of life and they really came to know everybody. But I think the ways that we know our audience and they come to know us, I think those contribute a lot to the feel of the place as well.
I think of Chester as a family in a couple of ways, but a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed an author on Artsbeat, a guy named Eddie Shapiro, who back, I want to say maybe 7 years ago, had written a book about the famous women on Broadway, and his father was involved with Chester as a subscriber or a donor, and he had agreed to come and do a reading of his book, and then he wanted to be interviewed, and I was asked to come up and interview him on the stage. And we were talking this when we taped a program with him a couple of weeks ago of how Chester Theater had brought us together. And we've stayed in touch. Now he has a new book out, which is really kind of cool. But for me, as an arts reporter, to get the opportunity to follow the careers of people that are working here in our area, that are producing both on stage, behind the scenes, or directing, and all of that, I feel part of that family in a certain way, and I'm so glad to have that opportunity. I never had that in any other markets and areas where I ever worked. So I think there's something very special. Paul, where are you based when you're not spending a summer in Chester?
I'm really close to the Times Square background that you have, Mark, on Zoom.
Okay.
Like 2 avenues over from all of those billboards right now, which has been really nice when, auditions are happening, because I'm like 10 minutes away from all of those auditions.
So you're a Hell's Kitchen boy.
That's right. My whole family actually has been here since the 40s. I grew up in Jersey, but when I got the chance to move back, I was like, there it is, my zip code.
Yeah. I lived on West 45th between 8th and 9th. That was where my New York base was. So when it came time to pick green screen backgrounds, it's things of New York theater that I know and remember.
That's right.
It was 47th between 10th and 11th, Mark. So
yeah, I think we all remember that neighborhood. I still go back every once in a while, but I haven't been back since well before the pandemic. What of the plays that you're doing this year? What is drawing you as actors to a particular play? I mean, you've got to be excited about doing it. It's got to be more than the work. But is there something in one of the plays that you're involved with that you're really excited in wanting to try, whether it's a new technique or a new experience, or whether the play resonates with you personally? We'll throw that out to Tara first.
Okay, so we were actually supposed to do Tiny Beautiful Things a couple years ago, and when Daniel had first introduced me to the script, I fell in love with it. I even used Sugar as my bowling name for a really long time because I was just so excited to play this role, and it kind of stuck. Having done, it was so much of it, and we've done a couple of reads of this, so much of it at times can feel like that sort of isolated one-woman show kind of thing, because it's all of these people reaching into this character, and then she's at her computer kind of giving advice out. However, having done a one-person show a couple years ago and knowing the real terror of that, I'm very excited to have a group of people with me that we can play with, even if we don't, even if the characters aren't connecting in the same physical space. And there's also something really quite hopeful about this script that feels very different from what I've been working on, and that just feels right, and that feels exciting to me. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, it's got to be a thrill to having done the one-person show and then doing all the Zoom to actually be on stage with two other people.
Yeah, I think I'm so thankful. I'm glad I don't have to be. James has to do the piece alone in the beginning of the summer, and I've offered to help a little bit, just with lines and stuff, because I know what it's like. But that's going to be a really fun project for him, and I think then I'm always so thankful when he and I get to do something together. It's just, it doesn't happen often enough, and when it does, it's just a really there's something so confirming about what we've chosen, just to be together in real life, but also to make these theatrical pieces together. So no, I just feel I feel incredibly lucky.
And James, what is drawing you to the plays you're doing this year?
Well, I think Title Indeed is just an extraordinarily beautiful piece of writing. When Daniel emailed it to me, I read it right away, and I was completely floored. And as someone who's studying playwriting right now, I could not be more jealous of Will Eno's capacity to so poetically, succinctly, and make these huge sort of fuzzy philosophical ideas so immediate and accessible. And though it is a one-person show, I feel like the character I'll be playing, the whole, it's the lengths they go to, the striving to connect literally with the audience before them is where the whole beauty of the piece stems from. And it's, it's also just deals with a lot of things I've been thinking about, probably as a result of the pandemic anyway, all those fuzzy gray areas in human nature, confronting paradox, feeling alone in a crowd, feeling totally content all by yourself, all these things that don't make sense but make perfect sense. And and then with Tiny Beautiful, it's just to be a part of that crew with a team that I love dearly, to tell this incredibly compassionate story. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
Paul, what is? I know you're coming back to Chester because you love working there. What about the play that you're doing resonates for you?
I really I was just picturing it as we were talking just now about doing Tiny Beautiful Things out in outside with our audiences at Chester Theater Company, and how generous that piece is, how generous the audiences are that I get to meet every summer. And also for me, it's, I think, the first time I've ever done a show twice, I think. So I'm excited to meet that challenge. And you know, Tiny Beautiful Things has its own kind of like universe. I think about like I don't know why I'm comparing it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but that's kind of what it reminds me of, because you have a book, you have hundreds of episodes of a podcast, and you have this play. And I think this play really has something in it that can really change people for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year. And maybe they'll come back more than once. And if they ever feel like they want to revisit the lessons, the text, or some of the characters and people that you meet in the play, you have a book and you have this podcast, this really wonderful podcast. So I'm just kind of excited to share all of that with everyone and to challenge myself.
That's
and I get to, anytime we're stuck in rehearsal, I get to say to Paul, wait, Paul, how's this part supposed to work?
Well, I would assume, I mean, every time you do a play with a different creative team and a different cast, it's a completely different experience. I mean, you can draw from the past, but this will be a whole new, it's like starting over and fixing it to work the way you want it to work better and all. I got a question for Angela, because when Angela's not busy marketing and raising money for Chester Theater, she's quite the adept storyteller who's done several of her stories on the Valley Voices story slams and stuff like that. Have you been storytelling during the pandemic?
Oh, so much. So my first story, it's kind of a crazy thing that happened. In September of 2019, I made a last minute decision to go see the Valley Voices Story Slam at the Academy of Music. And they announced what their upcoming season was going to be. And the first theme was going to be Love Me Tinder, which was stories of dating on the internet using dating apps. And I thought, well, I have got stories. And I didn't even realize I hadn't found my story yet. I had yet to have the date that led to the story, but I ended up putting together a story, pitching it, getting selected, and then placing in the top 3. So that earned me a spot in the Valley Voices Grand Slam. And then the pandemic hit. And so what I've been doing is storytelling is actually flourished in Zoom. I ended up taking classes with Matthew Dix, who's based out of Hartford, and he's one of the most renowned storytellers. He's won more than 50 Moth Story Slams. So I ended up taking a class with him, and there was a group of 6 of us who bonded. There's one person in Singapore, one in Australia, one in Seattle, me, Washington, D.C., and Chicago. And we still get together every Thursday night and work on our storytelling. And I've done all kinds of competitions, Valley Voices. I won a Moth Slam. So I've been doing tons of it, and I love it. And it's been the thing that has sort of saved me in the pandemic. It's given me, because I've been doing my work for Chester, which is great, but we never got the payoff of doing shows. So it's just been the work, which I love, but still part of the work of doing theater is getting the joy of seeing something on stage. So this has sort of given me that outlet of being able to create something, see something that I've worked on become something and so I'm still doing it mostly on Zoom, a couple of hybrid things, but it's been really great and I've loved it.
That's terrific. When Chester comes back to Hancock Shaker Village this summer, one of the highlights that Chester's programming included were talkbacks after performances where people could ask the director or the actors questions about the show. I have attended a couple of those. Will those be part of the upcoming season? Will social distancing and everything else allow for those?
We don't know yet. Like you, we adore that. That's part of it's part of what we think makes Chester Theater Company distinctive. It's part of how we and our audience really get to know each other. And if it's possible to do it, we absolutely will, but we feel like we have to wait a while yet to see. This year's brochure, unlike most, will not have wonderful little stars by all the opportunities to come to conversations with the cast or to those talkbacks or to our panels. the commitment we've made is that if for some reason it is impossible to do in person, that part of our programming will go online, and we'll make sure that if you come see a show and we're unable to do those conversations in person, that there will be chances to join us to get online and have those conversations. So somehow, yes, details to follow.
Details to follow. What about having you always had a big group of interns working in a variety of backstage things. Will the interns be able to return?
Tara, you want to?
So this year is a little different. Usually we have 7 interns that make up our intern company. This year was a little bit different because we were unsure about housing and we weren't sure what was going to be safe. So we decided that we would be taking on local interns. So students who can commute to Chester and to Hancock Shaker Village. So we lucked out. We have 4 young women who are going to be joining us for the summer, and they are going to be doing a variety of tasks. They're kind of like all hands on deck interns this summer. They will be assistant stage managing. They will be working front of house. They will be helping with box office. They will be helping our production manager. They will be helping us take down chairs, put up chairs. So it's going to be a busy summer. What's different about it for them this year is there's going to be a little bit of breathing room just because we don't have the overlap that we usually do. We're only doing 3 shows as opposed to 4, and there's a little space between each. So a show each month, as opposed to, we're just kind of rolling with show after show. I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for them to do a lot more than they would have if they had been, with us during a regular summer. They're going to be busy. But I think that they're going to learn a lot. And I'm really excited for them to meet each other and to start. So they'll be joining us when we start rehearsals May 24th. So it's going to be a good group.
Just around the corner. Actually, yeah. Daniel, one of the hallmarks of Chester Theater over the last few years have been the travel programs, a London theater trip every year, and then trips to either Washington or Chicago or Toronto to see theater and to meet artists and stuff like that. I know the pandemic has curbed all kinds of travel. Is it something that you're going to be able to relaunch in a year or two?
We're very much hoping to. As a matter of fact, we are right now trying to make plans for what we hope will be our first theater trip over a 2-year period, which is that we're hoping that in March of next year, so March 2022, we will take a London trip again, which would be amazing. For Chester, the first decision we had to make as the pandemic started to build was the decision to cancel the 2020 theater trip. It seems really obvious now, but at the time we made the decision, it was less obvious. And in fact, we had some of our travelers who said to us, well, why? I don't understand. Now it turns out that London theaters stopped performing the evening we were scheduled to see our first show, which I believe was the Tom Stoppard play that we were going to see on the West End. But we are making plans for a week in London in March of 22, and it feels not absolutely certain that it could happen, but it feels not crazy to talk about. And we're really excited to be looking at starting that again. It's another important part of who we are as a theater, and another of the ways I think that we connect as a kind of single family with our audience.
Another question for all of you: what kind of precautions do you all have to take to go back into rehearsal for a live performance, and what kind of precautions people that come to a performance under a tent at Hancock Shaker Village, what kind of precautions will they have to take in order to see live theater?
Well, I'll start with what we're doing internally, and then maybe Angela can tell you a little bit about what we're doing on the other end of things. We're working with Actors Equity, which is the Stage Actor and Stage Managers Union, to make sure that we're as safe a workplace as can possibly be. Happily for all of us, the vaccination rollout is moving at a pace where we're planning on being a vaccinated workspace, meaning that actors, stage managers, anybody from staff they interact with, directors, interns, will all be vaccinated. That's obviously one sort of leg don't know where my metaphor is going. A leg in the safety stool. There's no safety stool. I don't know what I'm talking about.
It sounds good, though. Keep going.
Okay, thank you. You're very generous. But we're also going to we're making sure that we know all about the ventilation in our spaces. We will be testing everybody in the company every single week for COVID. We'll be working with Berkshire Health Systems, who've created a marvelous way to support a lot of both businesses and arts organizations in the area to make that affordable, relatively speaking. We will still be largely masked in the rehearsal space with the exception of actors. So there's a great deal going on to make sure that we are working in ways that are really safe.
At this point in time, have you all been vaccinated or have access to getting a vaccination?
I am 5 days from being officially 2 weeks past shot number 2.
Yeah, I'm 4 days away from my day of freedom. Does it give you trepidation after being vaccinated, going back to a workspace that's going to be changed, or do you feel we can just handle it and take it on?
I don't know. How are people feeling?
How do you feel? I mean James.
For me, I'm give me any lengthy list of precautions I need to take, ways in which I need to alter my behavior. If I get to collaborate and produce theater with people for an audience, I don't care how we have to do it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and I have the utmost confidence in the process and in the plans that Chester Theater Company has made. I'm so excited.
And Angela, what will the audience be required when they come to a show? Will they need to be masked? Will they be seated apart? How's that going to play out?
Yeah. So first off, of course, we're going to be in the tent. Aside from the side of the tent that is behind the stage, the tent sides will be up. So there will be plenty of ventilation. We're going to be seating our patrons in purchase groups. So if you bought 2 tickets, you two will be together, and you will be a distance, whatever at that point in time the CDC and the state is recommending. So right now we would say it's 6 feet. That could change, but right now we're saying 6 feet from the next purchase group, so that there is plenty of space. We will be requiring masks. We're limiting contact on things like we're not doing paper tickets. Your programs will already be on your seats when you arrive. We're doing everything we can to make this as safe an experience for our audience as possible. And, and I think the vast majority of our audience is probably already vaccinated, which is great. And they are raring to go. They can't wait to get back and see live theater. They are beyond excited when we talk to them on the phone. So that's very encouraging. And the other thing that we've done or are doing, we're in the process of doing, is all of us who are not members of Equity, although Tara will be doing this too as a member of the staff, is we're taking a course that is specifically about COVID as it relates to performance, so that we're going to be certified in a number of safety protocols that exist right now. So we're going to be operating as safely as we can, because as much as we want to do this, we want to make sure we're doing it in a responsible way.
I understand that there are different restrictions. For example, a colleague of mine with one of the orchestras said that if there's music involved and there's brass instruments, they have to be separated like 25 feet. And if they're singing in a performance, they have to be separated. So who actually sets these guidelines? Is it Actors Equity or is it the health department?
In our case, it's Actors Equity, and they've really created the guidelines we're following because we are going to be a non-singing, non-wind instrument. I think actually maybe non-instrument period, but in this case, what matters is wind instrument season. We need our audience to be at least 10 feet away from the edge of our performance space. But if there were singing or other stuff like that involved, it would be 25 feet. So the numbers sound very similar.
Yeah.
I know James and Tara you were asking about shots earlier. I know James and Tara just got their first shots recently. Paul, what's going on down in New York?
Yeah, I got mine, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks ago, maybe. Um, the one that's in the news right now. That's the
Yeah, my wife got that one too. Yeah.
I never thought that we'd be bragging about how many shots we had. And if you go on Facebook, I mean, I had to show my bandage, from my shot. I mean, I was so excited to do that because all of my friends were doing it. But I feel much safer having had the vaccine. Although I got to say that I was never really afraid to go to the theater. If I was careful, I went to a performance at Berkshire Theater Group Thanksgiving weekend when they performed the show Holiday Memories outside. And in my mind, I thought, okay, it's going to be 18 degrees out there. But if I were going to go see the Patriots play at Foxborough, I'd probably be wrapped up and it would be 18 degrees outside and not, it wouldn't make a difference. But I'll tell you, there's a love for theater that we all have, whether we're on stage or whether we're backstage or in the audience. I would stand up in a snowstorm to see live theater at this point.
Well, we won't make you do that. We'll let you sit comfortably under a beautiful tent in the middle of Hancock Shaker Village instead.
Well, the last time I sat under a tent for an event in the Berkshires was at Berkshire Theater Group's 90th anniversary when it was 110 degrees under the tent. I was sitting at one table over from Tara, and I had just hoped that somebody would have hosed us all down because it was so incredibly hot. But I am intrigued by the idea of theater outside. I mean, it adds a different dimension to things. And theater under a tent, for those of us that grew up in New England, there was a tent theater in West Springfield, and the summer stock theaters were often in tents. So it's kind of a throwback in some ways.
Well, and I know that Angela has been generating all kinds of theories for lovely little hand fans that maybe everybody can have in their seats or something. And I always picture some either church revival or some production of Inherit the Wind where they're all sitting in the courtroom fanning themselves or something.
And what about the logo, the Chester Theater logo face masks that people will be able to wear and take on with them?
We're still deciding what branding we will and won't do. I will admit to not being absolutely certain that we need our logo on the things that remind us most of the things we like least, but we'll see.
We'll see. Before we wrap this up, Angela, go through the subscription offers that are available and how people can get more information and tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one subscription this summer because we're doing the 3 shows. And so it gives you a 1 ticket to each of the 3 shows. It's 20% off, which is a great deal. And you can do that by purchasing it online, www.chestertheater.org. Theater has an RE at the end. And then, of course, if you can't commit to all 3 shows, if you're not going to be in the Berkshires for the entire summer, single tickets are available. I will say this, we are selling tickets extremely well. And that means that some shows are actually close to being sold out. So I recommend that if people are interested, that they look into that as soon as possible, because we are going to have some shows that will sell out, and which is great.
Well, it's important because all the theaters, including Chester, have just taken a big beating in the last year. So every ticket sold, every dollar contributed. And I understand that a lot of your ticket holders from 2020, where they got a canceled season, just donated their tickets back to the theater. So you've got a good audience base of people who care about your future.
People have been exceedingly generous, Mark. People have been showing kindness to us by, as you said, donating back the cost of the tickets, making additional gifts that they wouldn't normally make, maybe adding a few dollars to their normal annual giving. And all of that is so appreciated because there are a lot of expenses included in producing the summer that we don't normally have. So, every dollar that people feel compelled to give us means a lot.
Paul Pontrelli, what are you doing between now and Chester? Are you working on any particular projects?
Well, there's still Zoom readings that are still happening. And this is episodic season, I guess, in New York. So auditions for the things that are shooting here are happening. And that's pretty much kind of rolling with what's coming up until I get to go out there in July.
Yeah, I bet you can't wait to get back up here.
Yeah, really. It's so special. I mean, I was even thinking about when I talk about what's in the air, I think about art, Jacob's Pillow and Mass Mocha and the theater that happens there. There's just something flowing, something in the water.
And one thing I got to tell you is we're taping today. There are snowflakes outside here in the middle of April, so I can't wait for it to warm up a little bit. James, semester ends pretty soon. How many plays do you have to write before you get back to acting?
I don't know. Probably 3 or 4. Yeah, so I think classes all wrap up on the 15th, and then I'll have a couple weeks at least to solely devote to preparation of Title Indeed before we begin rehearsals. But
James, should I tell you the terrible truth that it's 9 days?
9 days. Okay. Yeah, a week and 2 days. Yeah, that's so I'll have there'll be a period of time that isn't insignificant.
And Tara, you're wrapping up teaching at Smith. Have your students, are they remote this semester or are they in school?
A lot of them, I would say, 90% of my students are on campus, except that I am teaching online. So all our classes are still virtual. So I am really crossing my fingers for in-person teaching next fall because I'm a little zoomed out, and I think we just need to be back together.
Yeah, and Daniel, you're teaching, and when do you put the teaching duties aside to be full-time artistic director?
I'm on about the same schedule as James. We'll wrap up classes in the middle of May, but we're definitely in that period of overlap where, normally I think of these jobs as weaving together very nicely. This is usually the month of the year they don't weave so much as just sort of all pile up. And I do my best to be as present for each as I'm able. I'm lucky to get to do both of them and try to be very present for them. This is the tough stretch.
Well, we've been chatting today with the great people from Chester Theater Company, and I can't wait till June rolls around, and we can all go up to Hancock Shaker Village and see some of the performances. Three different plays this year. chestertheater.org for details. We've been chatting with Daniel Elahu Kramer, the artistic director, Angela Combest, who does the marketing and development, and the actors Tara Franklin, James Barry, and Paul Pontrelli. Thank you guys all for being here this morning. I can't wait to see you this summer up in Hancock Shaker Village. And this wraps up another edition of Artsbeat TV and radio on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. If you've missed a portion of today's program, or you want to see another Artsbeat program, or you want to watch this one again, you can find it on WSKB Community Radio on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and we'll be here next Friday at 8 o'clock. See you then.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne. We try run about the braes and pull the gowans fine, but we've wandered many a weary pace in old lang syne. For old lang syne, my dear, morning sun till dine, but seas between us brought a roar in old lang syne. For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind, should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne